Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, Cyclones fans. Iowa State still has another football game to play today on Locked On Cyclones.
You are Locked On Cyclones, your daily podcast on the Iowa State Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making this your first listen of every day. Be sure to subscribe wherever you watch or listen if you're here on YouTube or just over the audio waves, so we can prove once and for all that this is in fact a Cyclone state. Today's episode is brought to us by our friends over at FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, if you're making this your first listen of today, I'm aware it's a little bit later, but man, that bus ride back from Arlington got back quite late, so I take full responsibility for that, but I appreciate you guys for being here. And you know I had to rep my homemade I Heart ISU t-shirt to get back into the groove of things because ISU hasn't gone anywhere. No, ladies and gentlemen. We got things we got to break down. Iowa State makes a bowl game. Where do we go and when is it? Next up, we have obviously the next generation of Iowa State football we've got to talk about. And then in the third segment today, Iowa State basketball, still relevant and climbing the charts higher than ever. Lot of great Iowa State things we got to break down, which is why the shirt is on. But you know what? We're going to start things off with football. A little bit of a sore spot after Saturday. I'm sure we're all kind of in the same boat there. Definitely pretty shocking loss. And it took me a little bit of time to bounce back from that. But you know what? The team is ready to roll. It was announced that Iowa State will be playing the University of Miami. It's all about the U. No, it's all about the Cyclones. But we will be playing Miami in the Pop-Tart Bowl down in Camping World Stadium, Orlando, Florida, Saturday, December 28th, 2:30 Central Time. It'll be 3:30 over there in Eastern Time Zone. And this one was controversial for quite a few reasons. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the bowling slate, BYU and Colorado will be squaring off, and people are calling that, maybe that's what the Big 12 championship game should have been. Well, I'm pretty sure the Big 12 championship game already happened, so let's not get too crazy there. Now everyone's upset that Iowa State is going to get boat raced by Miami. Like, what kind of matchup is this? Well, I beg to differ. I do think that this will be, if not a close game, Iowa State's advantage. What we have all week to dive into who, what, when, where, why, and how. I'm surprised that people are so upset with this matchup. I know for one thing, I'm quite excited that Iowa State gets the chance to pick between one of three Pop-Tart mascots to get to eat at the end of this game because we know they'll come out on top. But overall, taking a look at the game itself, Miami start the season 9-0. And if you remember, after they beat Duke, they were ranked number 4 in the AP poll. So this team, nothing to scoff at early. Unfortunately, the way things ended did not go the way they started for Miami, finishing the season 1-2, dropping games to Georgia Tech and Syracuse, eventually falling out of the ACC championship game and the playoffs altogether. People did not like that. They thought Miami was a very good team, but when it came down to strength of schedule, which the college football playoff was an interesting one this year, I'm sure things will get refined for next year, if that makes sense. But overall, Miami, not a team to scoff at. They are going to be very good, and I do think that the Cyclones are going to have to bring their A game. Unfortunately, our last game, I don't think we brought our A game, but hey, we got a couple of weeks. We got like 19 days to prepare for this one, and the Cyclones certainly are going to do that. We've already gotten quotes out of multiple different players, leading up to this game. I'll start with Cam Ward. Just an hour ago, that is the benefit to this program coming out a little bit later today, but on FaceTime with Shedeur Sanders says, best believe my last game, I'm going to throw that dang ball. They offense go crazy. I go crazy. Our defense got a little bit exposed in the Big 12 championship game. I'm not going to say that that's not the case, but our pass defense certainly has been one throughout the year that's been solid. So I'll be very interested to see if Cam Ward can do what he says he's going to do, but there's a chance that he's just on the phone with Shedeur, and that is kind of what fueled that fire, because everybody knows you say a little bit more than you actually believe when you're on the phone with your buddies. But I'll say this much. Some people might be thinking, oh, Iowa State is coming off that tough loss, it's a heartbreaker. Maybe the team's just not in the right headspace. I saw this quote out of where is it here? I think it's Higgins. No, Jalen Noel, excuse me. And this turned my head automatically. I just love the way that the Iowa State football team works, all the way those gears fit together, the way that their mindset is just shaping to become, next game forward, bring our best. The best is the standard type of deal. Coming out of Jalen Noel here, quote, just to be able to have that last moment, it will be a defining moment for this program to win 11 games and finish better than we did last year. I know we went last year to Memphis and obviously didn't win that game, but this year will be different. We've got to prepare, keep the standards, keep holding guys accountable, and anybody that doesn't want to hold the standard doesn't need to go for the ride on the last game, but we'll be ready for it. Quote, that's awesome. That is absolutely amazing. The fact that is obviously Jalen Noel, one of the best players on the Iowa State team, the Iowa State football team, one of the leaders in that locker room. You could definitely expect a very just kind of dancing around the question answer there. Like, yep, we're going to bring our best. Maybe they even throw in and, hey, we're upset about the last game. We got time to prepare, though, time to rest up. We'll be ready. Something like that, I wouldn't turn my head towards. I wouldn't really put any attention into that. But the fact that he's literally like, hey, if you are not going to bring your A game, if you are not going to prepare and help this team get to 11 wins, you don't have to jump on the plane. You don't have to be there. Like, no one is making you go. And I think that that's the kind of leadership that this locker room has, that it sets it, well, it sets itself apart from past years of Cyclone football. I feel like this team is different than what we've seen in the past. And I can't wait to see what they're able to put up on the field down there in Miami. Obviously a lot of question marks coming out of the Big 12 championship game, but I do think that the Arizona State Sun Devils team that they faced was one of the best teams, in the college football playoff, realistically. People will say that they didn't deserve to be in the Big 12 championship game, and it should have been a Colorado. It should have been a BYU. That's just not the case. That's not what happened. We can't play ifs, ands, or buts. No what ifs. Those are the facts of what happened. It was Iowa State versus Arizona State, and Arizona State, without a Jordan Tyson, looked unbelievable. If you missed our post-game, recap episode coming out Saturday, definitely go and watch that, because I break down everything that I saw, with my own eyes, and it was ugly, but I think that this team can use that and learn from it. Where can we get better? Where can we get a little bit more refined? Where can we attack Miami? Where can we actually play our best football? And that's what I do love about this team. That's what I'm excited to see moving forward. But trust me, this is not the end of Cyclone football. It felt like a piece of me died on Saturday. It sure did. But this is not the end of Cyclone football. They're not going anywhere. The future of Cyclone football certainly is bright. Obviously, Matt Campbell making 7 bowl games in his 9 years here. We dropped the last 2, but I'm excited to see if they can turn this one around. But Matt Campbell's not the only one that takes the field. Actually, he doesn't actually jump on the field that often. It's more often than not the players. And the players coming down the pipe for Iowa State are certainly nothing to scoff at. These guys are going to be absolute dogs. We're going to break that down coming up right after this. Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection down to every single bite. And right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, score an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steakhouse made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com. and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. You are here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for making this your first listen every day. We got some high school guys that signed with the Cyclones this last week, and I hadn't touched on it until this point, but I do think that this is the perfect time to. I wanted to wait till after the Big 12 championship, and here we are sitting here on Monday. with a lot to talk about. Last Wednesday was the early National Signing Day period, and I have an unreal list of names here that we have to dive into because I don't know how we did it, but this is a really, really, really good class that will be joining the Cyclones next year. I've got name, position, and a small fact that I think is very pivotal to each player. And we're just going to jump right into it, and then I'll kind of break down my overall takeaways from it. We first have Joshua Patterson, DB from Florida. This guy only allowed one reception in his last year down there in Florida. I don't know. You tell me, is that good? That feels like it's probably pretty good. One reception. Whew. That's nothing to scoff at. So before I go forward, I will say some of these names, if I butcher them, if you guys are listening, I do seriously apologize. Some of these names are very tough. So I'm going to give up my best here. But if you have any gripes, you can shout out, go down to the Twitter here and shoot me a DM and be like, hey, you butchered my name. You're going to be talking about me all year next year. Here's how you say it. I'm not going to take it personally because these are some tough names, but they're awesome. Speaking of this guy, cool. I think that's how you say it. Offensive line, comes from Ohio guy. Can't wait to see what he does for the Cyclones next year. Obviously, offensive line, a bit of a concern, but definitely D-line more than that. But the lines in general, I wanted to see some improvement, so I'm excited to see us bringing in offensive linemen. Next up, we have Karen Brookins, wide receiver. This dude ran a 10.8 100-meter dash. That's pretty fast. I am not going to lie. So the speed out of the wideout position is certainly going to help the Cyclones next year. Trey Verdon, defensive line. What I just say, bringing in offensive and defensive line guys is going to be pivotal for the Cyclones. And guess what? Offensive line, cool. Ohio guy. Defensive line, Trey Verdon, Ohio guy. That's all I need to say there. I love guys from Ohio. They know how to play football over there. That's for sure. Next up, Zay Robinson, wide receiver from Des Moines. This dude has awesome hair. All right. And he's only, 30 minutes south of Ames. That's going to help quite a bit, being close to the family, close to home. I'm excited to see what kind of noise he makes. Alex Mansky, quarterback from Algona, Iowa. There are quite a few guys, at least two, I think maybe even three from Algona. That'll definitely help that gelling in the locker room, making them feel comfortable early. And Mansky has some unbelievable tape out there. This guy can sling it. That is for sure. Next up, Dylan Malone, wide receiver. Guess I'll tell this, guys. If you said the height of any building on Iowa State's campus, you'd probably be pretty close. 6'7". We got a guy who can get up and go get it over top some DBs. So I'm excited to see what that height can do. Obviously, we've got the speed in Karen Brookins, but the height from Malone here is exciting, at least in my opinion. Next up, Will Tompkins, offensive line, 4-star, stays in state. Love to see that. Love the homegrown kids, especially here in Iowa. Charlie Wolben, not exactly sure. Defensive lineman from Kansas. Love that we're bringing in more defensive linemen and that we stole one from Kansas. That is huge to me. Next up, Mason Ellens, defensive back, had 5 touchdowns as a DB. Where's number 4? Had more touchdowns than his number. That's always a good sign. Ethan Stecker, DB, track and field state champ, 6'4". We're bringing in some height. That's good news. I'm 6, maybe 1 with shoes on. And anytime you look up to a 6'4" guy, you instantly are like, oh my gosh, that guy's tall, let alone the 6'7s that we got bringing in. I love that we're bringing in some height, but we do need a tall quarterback back there as well. So we'll see what happens on that front. But 6'4" at DB, going to be able to go up, make a play on the ball. I love that for sure. Next up, LaMarcus Hicks, defensive back, even more defensive backs. We got bang, defensive back, lock down, strap them up type deal. Coming out of this class, I really like that we're putting some more emphasis on that secondary and just trying to keep that one of our strong points as a team. Jack Limbaugh, defensive line from Algona. What I say, Algona, you're going in with a friend, you're going in with a teammate, you're going in and you're going to be able to kind of bounce ideas, thoughts off of each other, feel more comfortable right away. I love that. Next up, River Peppers, running back. This dude, these stats are unbelievable. 4,500 yards and 70 touchdowns last year. 70 touchdowns. That's like a lot. That's a lot of touchdowns. So shout out to him for that. We'll see if he can convert that over to the college game. Next up, Will Hawthorne, linebacker. He was a little Cyclone last year from Ames, Iowa. So he's ready to get rid of that little and to make it himself a full-blown Cyclone. I'm excited to see the kind of noise he makes. Obviously, injuries decimated the linebacking core for Iowa State last year. Adding a little bit of depth there is always going to be good. Next up, Kamori Moore, defensive line. what are we looking at here? 118 tackles and 25 tackles for loss. This guy knows how to hawk down the football. That's exactly what we need out of defensive linemen moving forward. Sion Perkins, offensive lineman, 6'9". That's already right there. Head turning. 6'9", and that's as a freshman, so he might get another inch or two once he gets on that Iowa State food program, starts just getting huge. I wouldn't be surprised if he walks out of the program 6'10", 6'11". You put on the cleats, that dude's 7 feet tall. All of a sudden, maybe you put some lifts in there. That's what I was saying about, we need to have a quarterback that can throw over a guy that's 6'9", maybe 7'4" by the end of his career here. But man, that right there. Awesome. Guess where he's from? Eagle, Idaho. Eagle, Idaho. From a place like that, I expect nothing less than absolute greatness. That's exciting for sure. Next up, this is one I was saying. I don't know if I'm going to get this right. Akula is going to be my final answer there. And I'm not trying to make fun of these names. I just not very good at reading. Offensive lineman from Hawaii. Like I said, bringing in more offensive linemen, securing that front, maybe for the run game or for pass game defense. We saw how that went last week. The huge hit given up to Rocco. We don't want any more of that. So I like that we're bringing in an offensive lineman. And last but not least, Sam Zelinovich, wide receiver. He's won every single 5A state championship. I don't know. Is that good? That's a winner right there, if you ask me. And I'm always a big proponent of winners. So looking at this list right here, I see a lot of really good moves made by Iowa State. A lot of guys coming from in-state, and we were able to pull a few. One from Kansas, Hawaii. That's quite a trip. We got one from Eagle, Idaho. So I like that we're starting to draw in some national attention, obviously making the Big 12 championship game this year. I do like the emphasis at DB, our offensive and defensive lines. Obviously, you're going to bring in guys from everywhere, right? Like running back. We got a quarterback. We need to keep that depth there. These guys know how to do recruiting a lot better than I do when I play NCAA 25. I know that for sure because I always get lost. And looking at this list right here, if I was able to put a list half as good as this into my dynasty for the Cyclones on these was NCAA 25, I would be extremely, extremely happy. So this is not like this is early National Signing Day period. We'll probably pick up a few more, and none of these are official. I think, unfortunately, I'm not exactly sure how this early National Signing Day period works, but we got a couple months to get this completely ironed out, completely finished up. But I like where this is at. I do. We got speed, we got height, we got just overall sick football play. I don't know if that's the best word to use there, but 1 reception allowed out of Joshua Patterson, 25 tackles for loss out of Moore. I really like where this team is at, and honestly, moving forward, I don't think a Big 12 championship game every 4 years is what we need to be looking at. I think we might be looking at a Big 12 championship game every other year, especially with this class of guys. So I can't wait to make some noise. Speaking of making noise, the basketball team has been doing just that. And we have to talk about that coming up on Locked On Cyclones. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Obviously, Iowa State making a bowl game, getting some extra Iowa State football is huge. And when we go down to face Miami in Orlando, Florida, Iowa State currently 1.5-point dogs. Don't love that we are dogs, but I am definitely taking points. If you're going to give them to me for the Cyclones, I'll say it again. I'll say it every single time you ask me. Give me the Cyclones plus 1.5. I love it. Next up, we got right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So if you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. If you want Higgins to score, that's the place to do it. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, you're here with Locked On Cyclones, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there. I'm starting to see your guys' comments consistently on YouTube, and I couldn't appreciate it more. Your guys' support is unwavering, and it means a lot. So let's jump right into another unwavering situation. Cyclone basketball, currently 8-1 after our win over, Jackson? Jackson State, correct. Yesterday, that one was kind of a blowout. I'm not going to lie, 100-58. The team looked unbelievable. What's new? Unfortunately, Jackson State 0-11, so they kind of got the short end of the stick on that poll. But I'm sure they were, delighted to come up to Ames. What a wonderful town. Get to play some basketball in Hilton Coliseum. Magical place to play basketball. It's a win-win for both teams, realistically. And Iowa State obviously got the win. And this one, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this because there are more things coming out of Cyclone basketball we have to cover. But honestly, great team win. The way that if you take a look at the box score, the way that the points kind of divvied up was pretty even for the most part. No guys standing out. One thing that is a little bit almost concerning or alarming to me is yet another mediocre performance point-wise from Tamin Lipsey. I believe he had 5 assists, though, so he was moving the rock around. But that point discrepancy, I guess, the point lack thereof from him is almost a little concerning. But in a situation where you're up, you win by 42 points, it's not crunch time realistically. So I know that plays a role. I just want to see if we can maybe find Tamin Lipsey's mojo, get him rolling before we absolutely need him, and he's not quite in his groove yet. That's the only thing I have with this game. Jefferson is unbelievable for us this year. Momcilovic, getting started early. So I there's nothing really we need to spend a ton of time on this game. And you'll see, for those of you watching on YouTube, I've got TJ Watts up this week. I don't know if we're going to stick with this, but I do think we, maybe on a Monday, take a look at what's coming up for Cyclone basketball. And as I said, this game, not exactly the biggest thing in the world, but Watts coming up this week, the Cyhawk basketball game. We need to dive into that. And we will as the game gets closer. It comes up on Thursday in Kinnick Stadium, or not Kinnick Stadium, in Iowa City for sure, Carver. So I'm not doubting the Cyclones at all on that one. I like where the team is at currently, and currently coming in at number 3 in the AP poll. That's going to turn some heads. It really, really is. There's a couple big points I want to make on this number 3 ranking for the Cyclones. So in the Big 12, first off, we are the number 1 Big 12 team ranked. Number 1 is Tennessee. Number 2 is Auburn. Then you go Iowa State at 3. So Tennessee and Auburn, neither of those guys in the Big 12. That's a pretty easy one to figure out. But you have to jump down to 10 to get Kansas there. Then you get Houston at 15 and Cincinnati at number 22. I like where the Cyclones are at, obviously, in the national slate, but even more than that is in the Big 12. This is another year where we're going to make a push for that Big 12 championship, just as we did last year. And it's a big turnaround for Cyclone sports as a whole, as we've talked about on the show in the last week. We're on the up and up, everything. Not only football and basketball, women's basketball, cross country, wrestling we'll be talking about this year. You're kind of waiting for football to wrap up before we really dive into that. But Cyclone athletics in general are turning heads, and I couldn't be more excited, especially as you get better, you recruit a little bit better. And I think the Cyclone projection, we're up and to the right. It's this way on the camera, up and to the right. So I'm excited to see that. Yep. What's up this week? Omaha comes to town on Sunday, and then we'll be at Iowa, who's 7-2 on Thursday. So 2 big games. The Omaha one, some people will look at that and say, that's not even really a big game. But realistically, I want to win every game. I don't think I'm in a boat alone on that take. I would like the Cyclones to finish the year with only 1 loss to number 2 Auburn. I think that'd be pretty cool. But that the ultimate goal is to bring home the hardware, right? We're trying to bring home the nets in April, I suppose. Cut down the nets is a better way of putting that. And to talk on that note, very, very interesting statistic I saw on Twitter today. Every champion since 2003, 2004 has ranked in the top 12 in week 6 power rankings. Where did Iowa State come in? Number 3. That's within the top 12. So it has nothing to do with a correlation on which seed or which ranking you're given per se, but it certainly shows that if you are in the top 12, like, you're going to win it. I guess that's how you look at that. I don't really know. I'm not a stats guy. I'm not huge on how that thing works, but I do know this. There was nobody outside the top 12, and we're in the top 12. So that's good news. Kansas also coming into the top 12 there if you want to look at the Big 12 conference as a whole. I think that this basketball team certainly has everything it needs to win. When you look at our last few games, scoring 81, not uncommon. Scored 100, this game against Jackson State. So the big thing for the Cyclones last year, and we kind of talked about this ad nauseum, was their defense is unreal, right? Their defense is going to be scrappy. It's going to keep you in games, and they were able to score enough points to beat most of their opponents. But this year, things are a little bit different. Obviously, the defense very good, holding Jackson State to only 58 points. That's not that many. I personally can count that high, so that's a good sign for the Cyclones on defense there. But scoring 100 points is even bigger in my opinion, because now you can get into a game where maybe Kansas or maybe Houston, or dare I say it, the Illinois Illini can put up 80 or 90 points, and you don't have to basically stop them to win. You can also get your own. Iowa State can score their own points. That is my biggest I guess takeaway from this team so far, is that we have now the ability to score points. Gilbert is a legend when it comes to layups right now. I mean, if you've ever seen me play basketball, granted I did wrestle in high school, but you'd see me driving into the lane and, you know, driving at the hoop, and you'd say, "Oh, he's going to make this. He's wide open. It's a fast break." Wrong. Clang, right off the rim, right off the backboard, and free points for the other team at that point, because everyone's so caught off guard. They're like, I can't believe he just missed that. Keyshawn Gilbert will drive into the lane going 150 miles an hour on one leg, actually somehow parallel to the floor, and brings it up a little wraparound with his left hand, and he will make it every single time. I can't believe how I guess consistent and honestly how acrobatic he is inside the paint there. And it's been so much fun to watch. And then it comes down to more than that. Obviously, Jefferson making noise early. There's a lot of guys on this team that I was surprised to see play so well. And Lipsy being kind of the guy for the Cyclones, especially last year. Shorter guy with the headband. Everybody knew his name. Everybody knew what he looked like. It's surprising to me that he has had a little bit of a slow start. But like I said before, I don't think this is concerning yet. I think it's just, coincidence almost. Obviously, the win over Marquette, very good team. And we talked about that last week, how big that win is. But I think it's that right there is a example of the Cyclones doing what they had to win. If Marquette wants to lock down Lipsy, stop him from getting his, we got other dudes that can do it. And that is a prime example of this team being a step ahead of where they were last year. And yes, I have said today, I'd like to see Lipsy get it going. But if we're in a situation where other teams just want to guard Lipsy and keep him from getting his, we've got 4 other dudes on the floor at any given time that are going to accelerate, improve their game, rise to the occasion, I guess, if you will, and get it done. And the Cyclones, I wouldn't be surprised if we're cutting down the nets, if we're bringing down the Big 12 championship trophy to Ames, Iowa, back-to-back here. And I can't be more excited to see what this team has in store for us. We'll see on Thursday if we can bring home the Cyhawk trophy. I have no doubts there. But obviously, more than that, the football team, we got 19 days or whatever it is before they go into Orlando and take on Miami. We got big things coming out of Cyclone Athletics. If you haven't shared the show with anybody, boy, things are going to get loud really, really quickly, and I can't wait to cover it all. That's going to do it for today's episode, guys. Until next time, sayonara, Cyclones.